The moment the front door of the Silver Lantern creaked open, every conversation inside fell to a cautious murmur. The place was a low, lit roadside bar off Highway 47, a refuge for truckers, travelers, and the folks who preferred life with more asphalt than walls. It wasn't a fancy joint. 3 neon signs, mismatched stools, and a jukebox that skipped on every other track. But it had warmth, and people felt safe there, mostly. The man filling the doorway didn't bring warmth. He brought a shadow, big, broad, leather-clad, and loud in his silence. A biker, the kind who didn't ride for fun, but for the place's trouble simmered, and trouble always simmered around him. Jess, the waitress working the night shift, noticed him the second he walked in. Hard not to. He carried a sort of gravitational pull, the kind that sucked oxygen out of the room. She had seen bikers plenty of times. This town was used to them. But something about this one, something in the guarded tension in his shoulders, put her nerves on alert. He looked around, eyes scanning faces with the precision of a soldier and the distrust of a hunted animal. Jess sighed to herself. Please don't let him be drunk. Please don't let him be angry. Please don't let him. He walked straight to the bar. Great, Tom, the bartender, whispered out the side of his mouth as Jess approached with her pad. You sure you're up for this? Jess forced a smile. I deal with idiots every Tuesday, Tom. Let's see if he at least tips. Tom didn't smile back. She stepped closer to the biker's table. Evenin', what can I? Whiskey. His voice came rough. Gravel rubbed against steel. Neat or... He looked up. For the briefest moment, their eyes met, hers green and wary, his gray and stormy. Neat. Jess nodded and turned, but she didn't make it 2 steps before he said, make it a double. She gave a small thumbs up without looking back. Her instincts were humming. This man was coiled tight, like an animal cornered or like someone trying very, very hard not to explode. Tom poured the whiskey and slid it her way. Jess brought it over, setting it gently in front of the biker. He drank it in one slow swallow. She raised a brow. Another. He grunted. She took that as a yes. When she returned with the second drink, he finally spoke again. Busy tonight. It's Friday, she said with a shrug. People like to unwind. I don't, he muttered. You unwind differently, she said, surprising even herself. His gaze flicked up again, assessing her like he wasn't sure if that was sarcasm or understanding. Maybe both. For 10 minutes, Jess drifted between tables, checking on regulars and newcomers alike, but her eyes kept going back to the biker. He sat stiff, jaw clenched, fingers tapping on the glass, not with impatience, but with agitation. Like he was waiting for something or someone. Eventually he raised a hand, not a wave, just a single finger pointed at his empty glass. Jess walked over. You know, you slam too many of those and you'll either go blind or start punching walls. His eyes narrowed. Not planning on either. Well, she said lightly, if it happens, walls are cheaper than people. A faint twitch pulled at the corner of his mouth, maybe the ghost of a smirk. You think you're funny? I think I'm right. He didn't argue. Jess turned to fetch another drink, when suddenly a sharp tug caught on the back of her shirt. She didn't even have time to yelp. The biker had grabbed her by the collar. No warning, no explanation, nothing. And with one rough yank, he tore the thin cotton shirt clean down the back, ripping it open from collar to shoulder blade. The entire bar froze. Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. The jukebox continued its slow, warbling tune, unaware that time had stopped. Jess stood stone still, heart hammering, the back of her shirt hanging in tatters. For a split second, everything in her screamed to punch him in the jaw. But she didn't move, couldn't, because the biker wasn't looking at her face. He was looking at her shoulder blade, at the mark there. A mark Jess did everything in her power to keep hidden, because she hated it. Because she was scared of it, because it wasn't supposed to mean anything anymore, but the biker looked like he had seen a ghost. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. Jess swallowed hard. The bar was silent, waiting. She didn't answer. He stood up slowly, towering over her now. His rough fingers reached out, not to grab, but to hover, trembling, as if afraid to touch the mark again. A white symbol, shaped like a crescent broken in the middle by a vertical slash, sat inked into her skin. Faint, old, but unmistakable. "No," he breathed. "Impossible." Jess felt the familiar dread curling in her stomach. "Back off." But the biker didn't seem to hear her. He stepped back, only to drop into his chair like he'd been hit. "Oh my God," he murmured. "You're alive." Jess blinked. "Excuse me." He lifted his eyes. They were no longer angry or distant. They were terrified, grieving, amazed. "Jess," Tom snapped from behind the bar. "You want me to throw him out?" "No," the biker said sharply, raising a hand. "Don't, please." He turned back to Jess. "You need to sit. There's something you don't know." Jess folded her arms over her torn shirt. "I don't know a lot of things right now, starting with why you just ripped my damn clothes." "I." He rubbed a hand over his face. "I thought I was hallucinating. I had to be sure." "That's your excuse." "It's not an excuse," he said quietly. "It's Jesus. I never thought I'd see that mark again." Jess's heartbeat quickened. "What do you know about this?" she demanded. He stared at her in disbelief. "You really don't know?" "No, should I?" He leaned forward. "That mark belonged to a group that doesn't exist anymore. A group of people who..." He stopped, struggling for words. "People who saved my life, who saved a lot of lives." Jess's skin prickled. This was nonsense, had to be, but the look in his eyes said it wasn't. "What group?" she murmured despite herself. He pushed his drink aside, suddenly sober. "They were called the Crescent Guard," he said, "and they were wiped out 26 years ago." Jess felt something cold trickle down her spine. "I'm 26, and I know." She backed up a step. The biker stood. "Please sit," he pleaded. "Let me explain." No one in the bar moved. They were glued to the scene like spectators at a crash, unable to intervene. Jess sank into the chair across from him, not because she wanted to, but because her legs felt weak. He took a long breath. "My name's Rourke," he said. "I wasn't always this." He gestured to himself. "Once, a long time ago, I was a kid in a place I shouldn't have survived. A compound, remote, controlled by men who used fear like oxygen. You were born there, Jess, and your birth changed everything." Jess stared at him like he was speaking another language. "What are you talking about?" "I was found outside a church as a baby." "Right," Rourke said softly. "Found, because someone put you there. Someone who wanted you safe. Someone from the Crescent Guard." "I don't understand." "You don't remember it. You wouldn't. You were just a baby, but the rest of us remember. The night the compound burned, the night the guard sacrificed themselves to get the children out. You were one of them." Jess shook her head slowly. "No, that's crazy." "Is it?" Rourke pointed at her shoulder. "That mark was the symbol of the Crescent Guard. Only children born into the Guard lineage had it. It represented protection, legacy, destiny." Jess suddenly felt like she couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the air too hot. She whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Rourke said, "someone else has found you." A chill rolled through Jess like icy water. "What do you mean?" "For weeks," he said, lowering his voice, "I've been hearing rumors. Someone's been looking for a woman with that symbol, the same people who wiped out the Guard." Jess's chest tightened. "Why would they be looking for me?" "Because you're the last." The words landed like a blow. Jess shook her head furiously. "No, I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I grew up in foster care. I can't. I know you don't want this," Rourke said, "but it wants you." Tom approached cautiously. "Everything okay here?" "No," Jess and Rourke said at the same time. "She's not safe," Rourke said to Tom, "and neither is this place." Jess's breath stuttered. "What are you talking, Ab?" The front window shattered before she could finish. Glass exploded inward, showering the bar. Everyone hit the floor instinctively. Jess threw her arms over her face. People screamed. The jukebox stuttered, then died. Rourke was already on his feet, shoving Jess down behind the overturned table. "Stay down. What the hell? They found you," he snarled. Footsteps sounded outside the bar, heavy, organized, too many. Jess peeked over the table's edge. Black, clad figures moved past the broken window, weapons glinting. Panic surged through her. "Who are they?" "The ones who burned the compound," Rourke said. "The ones who killed the guard, and now they know you're alive." "How?" "Because I led them here." Jess froze. Rourke's jaw clenched. "Not on purpose. I've been running from them for months. They must have tracked me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Jess shoved him hard. "You brought them to me. I'm trying to save you by ripping my shirt off. It was the only way to be sure you were who I thought you were." A gunshot cracked through the room. Jess screamed as a bullet tore into the table inches from her. Rourke grabbed her wrist. "We have to go, now." "I'm not going anywhere with you." "You don't have a choice." He yanked her toward the back exit as more shots tore through the bar. Patrons scrambled. Tom shouted for people to get low. Tables were overturned, glass shattered. The Silver Lantern, Jess's safe place, had become a war zone. Rourke barreled through the kitchen door, pulling Jess behind him. "I have a bike out back," he said, "fast enough to outrun them." Jess yanked her wrist free. "I'm not getting on your—" A second bullet whistled past her ear and embedded in the metal wall. "Bike," she finished weakly. Rourke didn't wait. He pushed her through the back door into the alley where a matte black motorcycle sat idling. Jess didn't even see him start it. "Get on." She hesitated for half a breath, then gunfire erupted behind them. Jess leapt onto the bike. Rourke hit the throttle, and they shot forward, gravel spraying behind them. The night swallowed them as they tore down the alley and onto the highway, wind slamming into their faces. Jess clung to him, heart pounding, thoughts spiraling into chaos. Everything she knew about her life was unraveling. Rourke shouted over the roar of the wind, "They're gonna follow, hold on tight." She didn't need to be told twice. Behind them, headlights flared. The chase had begun. The bike rocketed down the two-lane highway, engine screaming, Jess clinging so tightly her knuckles were white. Cold wind lashed her exposed back, where the shirt was ripped, stinging like needles. Rourke swerved sharply, avoiding a set of spikes thrown onto the road from the pursuing SUV. "They're trying to box us in," he yelled. Jess could barely hear him over the thunder of engines behind them, but she understood. The SUV were trained, disciplined, working like wolves cornering prey. "What do they want with me?" she screamed. Rourke's voice came raw. "To finish what they started 26 years ago." Jess felt sick. This was insane, impossible, and yet the bullets flying past her head said otherwise. Another SUV pulled directly behind them, gaining fast. Rourke gritted his teeth. "Hold on." He jerked the bike onto a dirt service road leading into the forest. Trees blurred past as they bounced across potholes and roots. The SUV followed, headlights slicing through branches. Jess squeezed her eyes shut. "We're going to die. Not tonight." A fallen log loomed ahead. Jess barely had time to scream before the bike soared over it, landing with a bone-jarring thud. The SUV wasn't as lucky. It hit the log head-on, flipping violently as flames burst from the hood, but two more were still behind them. Minutes felt like years. Finally, the bike skidded into an abandoned ranger station deep in the woods. Rourke killed the engine and pulled Jess off the bike. Inside, Jess stumbled after him, adrenaline making her limbs shake. The old station was falling apart. Dusty maps on the walls, broken furniture, shattered windows. But it was shelter. Rourke barricaded the door with a heavy beam. Jess backed away from him, breath ragged. "I want answers, right now." Rourke turned to her, sweat dripping, chest heaving. "You deserve them. Start talking." He sat heavily on an old desk, rubbing his face. "I told you the Crescent Guard saved me. That's true, but what I didn't say is why the compound was burned." Jess crossed her arms tightly to cover her exposed back. "Go on." "They were trying to create something, a weapon, not a device. A person, someone born with the right bloodline and the right mark." Jess felt cold. "No," she whispered. "Yes," Rourke said. "They believed a child born with the crescent mark could either unite the Guard or destroy them. They didn't want that power falling into the wrong hands, so the Guard hid the marked children. And the people chasing us, they want to use you." "For what?" Rourke met her eyes. "To rebuild what they lost, to finish their work." Jess stared at him, stunned. "I'm just a waitress," she said weakly. "You're not." Rourke said, "That mark means something. I don't know what exactly, but they do, and that makes you dangerous." Jess slid down the wall and buried her face in her hands. Everything felt too big, too impossible, too insane. Rourke crouched beside her. "I didn't want you involved. I tried to keep them away from you, but when I saw that mark," his voice softened, "I knew you deserved the truth." Before Jess could respond, a crunch of gravel sounded outside. Rourke tensed. "They found us." Jess shot to her feet. "What do we do?" Rourke grabbed her hand. "We run." They bolted through the back of the ranger station as dark figures emerged from the tree line. Jess and Rourke tore down a slope toward the river, branches whipping their faces. Gunfire erupted again. Jess stumbled, and Rourke caught her, dragging her onward. "We're almost there," he shouted. They reached the edge of a narrow ravine with a raging river below. Jess stared. "We can't jump that. They won't expect us to. They'll expect us to die." Rourke tightened his grip on her hand. "Trust me. I don't even know you." He pulled her against him as bullets hit the dirt behind them. "Then trust that I'm not letting you get killed." And before Jess could protest, he leapt. Air roared around them, the world tilting, water screaming upward. They hit the river hard. Jess sank deep, cold closing around her like a vise. She kicked, gasping as she broke the surface. Rourke surfaced beside her, pulling her along as the current dragged them downstream. Jess coughed and sputtered. "Are you—" He didn't let her finish. "Swim." They fought the current until they reached a muddy bank. Rourke pulled her ashore and collapsed beside her, both gasping for air. Above them, flashlights scanned the ravine. "They'll think we drowned," Rourke said between breaths. "Buys us time." Jess rolled onto her back, staring at the dark sky. Her entire world had been shattered in a single night. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why did it have to be me?" Rourke lay beside her, eyes closed. "Because destiny isn't fair." Jess let out a shaky breath. "What now?" she asked quietly. Rourke opened his eyes. "Now." He sat up slowly. "We disappear, and then we find answers." Jess hugged her knees. "I don't know if I can do this." Rourke looked at her with something like respect. "You already are." Jess swallowed hard, still trembling, still scared. But somewhere deep inside, a spark formed, tiny, fierce. Maybe she wasn't just a waitress after all. Rourke stood and offered her his hand. "You ready?" he asked. Jess looked from his hand to the mark on her shoulder. Then she nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The two of them vanished into the forest as dawn crept over the horizon, leaving behind a world that would never be the same, and a story whispered by patrons of the Silver Lantern for years to come. The night a biker ripped a waitress's shirt. And what he saw froze the whole bar.